Hi, thanks for clicking on this video. We're here at Trinity Wesleyan Church so that we can unleash hope to those around us, and that includes you. So thank you for being a part of what's going on in our church, even through technology. We hope that this video is a blessing to you, and at the end, you're going to see some next steps and ways that you can get involved even after this video is done.
The Bible says in Isaiah 40:31 that those who trust in the Lord shall renew their strength. See, God wants you to know that if you're tired, if you're exhausted, if you're depleted and you feel like you cannot go forward and move forward, that as you trust in Him, He will give you the strength to take another step. That as you put your confidence in God, He will give you the capacity, the endurance to keep going, to keep moving forward, to keep putting one foot in front of the next. Because trusting God, believes for the best, hopes for the best, has confidence in faith that God will make a way, even when there appears to be no way, that God will see me through, even when I cannot see a way through myself. Trust in the Lord, and your strength will be renewed.
We're in our first week of the new year. I want to know who has started a New Year's resolution. If you have one, put it in the comments. We want to hear what your resolution is. I also want to know how many people have actually started and already stopped their resolution. If this is you, you are not alone. If you've already started and stopped one, 23% of people who make resolutions have already quit them in the first week of January. That's pretty crazy. Almost a quarter of people who start have already stopped in the first week. 43% of people will end their resolutions by the end of January. So almost half of the people who make resolutions will stop by the end of the first month. Like, I've been a victim of this too. But logically, let's think about it. If you end your resolution in the first week, there are 51 more weeks in the year. If you end your resolution in the first month, there are 11 more months in the year, and we always just say, like, I guess I just can't do it. Like, just because you think you have failed doesn't mean you've actually failed. You only fail when you actually quit. And you've taken a difficult step in doing that, but there's more steps, and it's going to get easier. It's going to become a habit. In April of 2022, I was playing softball with the church, and it was the first practice. I went to swing at the balls a little outside, and I heard something pop and tear. Hurt my shoulder. Kept playing the whole year. Kept going through, and I'm just like, man, it's just kind of how it is being old. Blah blah blah. So after about 15 months, I'm like, you know what? It's actually not getting better. So I went to a doctor. And we went to a specialist, went to the surgeon. I had shoulder surgery this past September to repair my the labrum, the bicep tendon, to shave off some of the bone. And that pain was brutal. I remember during physical therapy, my therapist said that there's some weeks you feel like you're getting stronger, some weeks you feel like you're getting weaker. It doesn't mean that the weaker weeks or you feel like you don't have as much strength that you're actually weaker. It doesn't mean that you've actually failed or done something wrong, but it's part of growth. Like, eventually you're going to hit your stride and it's going to feel like second nature and you're going to see tons of growth, but in the first little bit you're not going to see much growth, and sometimes you're going to have weeks where it's like it's just not doing anything. You may not see the physical results in the beginning and feel like you might be getting worse, but what is happening is underneath the skin, and that is incredible growth that you don't see. I remember when it finally just like started after like 6 weeks of physical therapy, it just like hit, and I'm just like, man, it doesn't hurt as much anymore. It's getting better. I feel like I'm stronger. I'm getting stronger faster than I thought. It just hits very quickly. But a lot of people give up in the beginning stages. They say there's 4 reasons why people quit their New Year's resolutions. Number 1 is that their goals are set for tradition. Like, maybe you start before New Year's. Maybe you start before New Year's and instead of starting on New Year's because everybody else is, just because it's tradition. That people set goals just because it's the time that you make them. It's New Year's, New Year, new me, let's do this. But we just make goals because other people are doing it at the same time as well. But maybe start before New Year's. It's like maybe in October or maybe in July. Like when you feel like you have the urge to do it, go ahead and do it. The second reason is that people don't expect the obstacles. They expect it to be very easy. It's just like, if I'm going to do this, like, it's going to be easy, right? A lot of people set too high of expectations for obstacles. Number 3 is that people set too large of goals or in too short of time for the goal. It might say, like, I'm going to run a marathon this year, but they haven't ran in years. I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months. Probably not. We set too large of goals to set smaller goals in smaller chunks to achieve those goals, to feel like we're actually getting to the place where we want to go. If we say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in the next week, like, it's not realistic. And 3 months isn't really realistic too. The fourth reason that people quit their resolutions is they have no accountability. They have no one else around them that is going to help them when they feel tired, when they feel like the obstacles are getting too difficult. When you have somebody else doing the same thing or has gone through the same thing as you, it's a lot easier to get through those goals because you have somebody cheering you on and helping you. Have you gone to the gym? No, I haven't been in like a week. You need to start going. It's going to get hard. That's kind of the reasons. But this sermon series is not for starting resolutions. It is called I Quit. Not I start, it is I quit. I'm reminded of a man by the name of Bob Goff, and he wrote a book called Love Does. It's one of my favorite books to read. Great book. You should read it sometime. Toward the end of the book, he talks about quitting things. He says that he quits something every single Thursday. He quits every single Thursday. He quits something. And he says the funny thing is, like, he never runs out of things to quit. There's always going to be something else to quit. It can be something big. It could be something small. It might be as big as him quitting a board that he sits on or that he's a member of. It might be something as small as quitting social media for a month or stopping an ongoing meeting that doesn't have a point to it anymore. He never runs out of things to quit. And we all get so inundated with stuff to do that we never have time to focus on what is actually important in our life. This last week, Jen and I were in Cincinnati running a large portion of the Wesleyan Youth Conference, which had 4,800 people in attendance. And over the 4 days that we were there, we worked 64 hours. We were some of the first people in the building, one of the last ones to go to bed. We had a hand in almost every single part of the conference. It was exhausting. And we got home, and we could barely keep our eyes open all day. We're worn out. Ellie had ballet when we got home, and she was tired. We're all tired. We didn't force her to go to ballet. Like, instead of saying, like, you have to go to ballet, like, we paid for you to go, you better go to ballet. Sometimes quitting or not doing something is for the best of what your family needs. But if we focus on, like, I paid for it, you need to do it, it's going to build character. Yes, I know it's going to build character, but there are times where we just see that it's going to be too much for our family, it's going to be too much for them to force them to go, and it's not going to help them in the long run. For that evening that we got back, we had quit everything to survive as a family because we are exhausted. We had a very difficult, stressful week. This series is focused on quitting, not starting. There are areas that we need to quit as individuals. There are areas that we need to quit as a church. It's not starting something new because it's the new year. It's nothing innovative. It's nothing crazy. It is keeping the most important things as priority in our lives and in the church. As Solomon, one of the most wise men who has ever lived, writes in Ecclesiastes, he says, there's a time for everything. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. This is Ecclesiastes 3. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. In Ecclesiastes 3:11 it says, He has made everything beautiful in its time. Just because you started something doesn't mean that it should go on forever. Sometimes businesses go under. Sometimes they last generations. Sometimes churches are planted. Sometimes churches die. Sometimes countries spring up and sometimes countries fall. Everything has a place in time. That not everything is going to last forever. If you think something will last forever, beware, it will not. Everything in this life has an end, whether you believe it or not. Today we're going to be in Joshua chapter 7 on the first thing that we're going to quit as Trinity Wesleyan Church. Before we go into the scripture for today, we need to understand what is going on around this. So we have this man by the name of Joshua. He's in second in command under Moses, the one who parted the Red Sea. Pharaoh, let my people go. After Moses had died, Joshua became the prophet for the Israelites. Because God told Moses that Moses wasn't going to go to the promised land, someone else would take the Israelites to the promised land, and this person is Joshua, who took Moses' place. So Joshua was basically the leader of the Israelites, spiritually speaking, and a lot in other ways as well. In chapter 6, right before chapter 7, where we're going to be today, the Israelites had just walked around the city of Jericho. It has fortified walls that were impossible to penetrate, that was on top of a hill, which if you know anything about battle, it's always good to have the high ground. They walked around the city once each day, and then on the seventh day, they walked around the city 7 times. God told them after the 7th time to blow their horns, yell as loud as possible, and this impenetrable city had toppled to the ground. Everyone in the city died except the prostitute Rahab, who helped out and helped the spies that went to go check on this city. Side note, if you think you're too far gone, remember Rahab the prostitute. She was someone who was counted as faithful even in the hall of faith in the book of Hebrews. So this is where we pick up today in Joshua chapter 7, verse 1. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, and the tribe of Judah took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. This is a very important note. Joshua didn't know this happened. He was not privy to this information. This is something that we can see looking on the outside in, but Joshua didn't know this before this next part. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-aven to the east of Bethel, and told them, Go up and spy out the region. So the men went up and spied out Ai. When they returned to Joshua, they said, Not all the army will have to go up against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it, and do not weary the whole army, for only a few people live there. So about 3,000 went up, but they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people melted in fear and became like water. Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there until evening. The elders of Israel did the same. They sprinkled dust on their heads, and Joshua said, Alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? If we had only been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Pardon your servant, Lord, what can I say now that Israel has been routed by its enemies? The Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe us out from the earth. What then will you do for your great name? And the Lord said to Joshua, stand up. What are you doing down on your face? He said, stand up. See, what was going on is Joshua and the elders this was a cultural norm for mourning, that they would tear their clothes, put dust on their heads. This is something that was normal. And God says to Joshua, stand up. What are you doing on your face? It's not time for mourning. It's a time of doing. It's not a time of waiting. It's a time of action. Verse 11 says, God says, Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things they have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. So the first thing that we're going to learn today, the first thing that we're going to quit is we're going to quit waiting on the right time. We're going to quit waiting on the right time. That we are going to make a commitment. I quit waiting. Life is full of decisions. They say that we make 35,000 decisions every single day. On average, our brain takes in about 74 gigabytes of information each day. That's 12 two-hour movies every single day is what our brains are taking in information. Every hour we're taking in 3 gigabytes of information. And that's a lot of information to sift through. But we can wait too long to make decisions based on a lot of factors. It's not the right time. It's not going to be safe. I don't feel like I have enough information or wisdom. I'm too afraid to do it right now. I don't want to get uncomfortable. But a lot of times when we are waiting and we are saying, God, where are you? It's because we are mourning and we are on our faces instead of saying, it's time to go and take action right now. 8 chapters later, in Ecclesiastes 11, Solomon is writing, he says, whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. There's 4 truths that we can learn in quitting waiting. There's 4 things that we can learn from Ecclesiastes chapter 11. The first thing is, if you focus on one point of view, you will never do anything. You will always wait for the right time. If you're a farmer and it's like, oh, there's a cloud way off in the distance, it looks like it might rain. It's like, if you're always looking at the clouds, you're going to think it's always going to rain. You wait for the perfect weather. You wait for the perfect time. There will always be a reason not to do something. You don't know how the weather works. You don't know if the weather will actually come to where you are. If you focus on one point of view, if you focus on all these different signs, and you're just saying, oh, it's just not going to work out right now, I'm just going to wait, you will never do anything if you focus on one point of view. The second thing we can learn is that we do not understand the work of God, and we never will. We can try to know, we can try to have our best theology, we can try to have all of our stuff figured out, but if it is something God has called us to do, nothing can stop God's plan. If God has called us to do something, nothing can stop that. The third thing we can learn says, don't be idle or don't be lazy. In our society, we can get stuck doing pointless, meaningless things after work. I feel like smartphones are actually making people lazier. We have smart plugs in our house that I can turn on the lights from just my phone instead of having to get up. And I can turn on my fan before I go to bed without having to get up. It's making people lazier. I'm not saying it's wrong to have those things. But technology also makes us care about things that we're never supposed to care about. Why do these little machines have a hold on us? Like, we can spend hours on our phone and get nothing done. We feel no better about the world. We feel worse about our life. We feel worse about the world. If we lived 200 years ago, we would be some of the laziest of society. Do your job well, then when you get home, there's other things that you're going to have to do. Do those things. Yes, relax for a little bit. Have some food. You'll feel a lot better. Get some energy. But don't get sidetracked by trivial things and pointless information. I'm not saying you can never use your phone or never use technology to relax, but it's taking precedence over more important matters. You know, the never-ending story of adulthood is laundry. It always happens. We always hate it. And it's as if we've never done it and we've never seen it. There's always laundry to do. There are always dishes to do. There are always things to do. We need to keep our house clean. There's things that we are letting our phones and technology take priority over than just taking care of the things that we're meant to take care of. There's always other things that you can and probably should be doing. But relaxing happens after the most important things are finished. Everyone has the same amount of hours in a day, but how are you going to use each hour? The last thing that we can learn from Ecclesiastes 11 and quitting, that we quit waiting, is don't put all your eggs in one basket. I remember people at the beginning of the next financial fad, they would put all their money in one place. Do you remember Dogecoin? It was a short fad and people made quick money, but put so much into it, they lost a lot. It's now worth less than 8 cents. Where at the height, it was 74 cents. But if you put all your money into it, you lost everything. Why do investors tell you to diversify your assets? Because if one falls, you have others to fall back on. It's using wisdom to understand the rising and falling nature of anything, that nothing in this life is forever except Jesus. Follow him. But outside of that, don't put your eggs all in one basket. But this scripture doesn't mean to throw all logic out the window. That you are given a brain for a reason. We can use reasoning, but don't let it be the only thing that you use. Yes, use reason. Don't be dumb. But if you only use reason, you will not have faith. It's a both and. There's reason and there's faith. Sometimes when God calls us to do something crazy, it's not going to make any reasonable sense to do what God is calling us to do, but he's calling us to have faith. Sometimes there's going to be less faith and it's going to be more logic, but it's going to be together with reason and faith that we can make the best decisions and follow God. We can get stuck waiting for the perfect time, wait for an easier solution, but there's no time like the present. There's no time like right now. Colin Powell, the former Secretary of State for the United States in the middle of the war in the Middle East, he said these words. He says, "Don't take action if you only have enough information to give you less than a 40% chance of being right. But don't wait until you have enough facts to be 100% sure, because by then it is almost always too late." At some point in your life, you got to go with your gut. If you have some of the information, you may not have enough. If you have all the information, it's already too late. You make time for what you want. What you spend your time doing is what you will invest in. If you spend your time on social media or watching TV, you will reap the rewards of that. If you spend your time caring about celebrity gossip, that's all you're going to have. If you spend your time learning a second language, you're investing in another person or another people group. If you spend your time reading your Bible, you are investing in your long-term spiritual health. If you eat healthier, you're investing in your physical future. If you work out, you're investing in your cardiovascular system. What you spend your time doing, you are investing in. Make sure what you are investing is something worth investing in. If you invest in a company, you would take your time getting to know the business, understand the benefits to you, just as you would want to protect your investment, whether it's financial, time, or related. You want to make sure it doesn't go to waste. You make time for what is important to you. God has given us time on this earth. What are we investing in? Many people say there's not enough time in the day, while other people seize the day and they take every moment as important. You make time for what is important. If you fill your time with meaningless things, you will reap meaningless rewards. You can't expect something different when you spend your time doing something that is not that important to life. Here's what it comes down to today. If we make the declaration of I quit waiting, we realize that there are things that take up our time that are negatively influencing our life. And here's the reason why I quit waiting is such an important part to start off this year at our church. The enemy of growth is tomorrow. We aren't meant to be born and then wait for our death. All of biology says that if you're not growing, you're dying. You can't wait any longer to eat better. You can't wait any longer to make amends with that person. You can't wait any longer to invest in your family. You can't wait any longer to change that generational poverty. You can't wait to change that addiction. We can always say that we'll do it tomorrow, do it next week, or do it next month, but it never happens. Things will always take residence. Things will always come up. Excuses always happen. We can say, tomorrow I will fill in the blank. And that is a lie straight from the depths of hell. Because we never do it. Don't wait until tomorrow, because today is a gift of its own. If you wait until tomorrow, you are investing in never. Because tomorrow never comes. In the new year, we always make goals on changing, but we hardly ever finish it. There are too many excuses. There's too many other distractions that will come along. Do it now. I want you to think about the one thing that you need to do right now that you've been putting off. Whether it's talking to that person to make amends with that person, whether you're going to start working out and it's going to be today, whether you need to go home and you need to do your laundry, whether it's you've been putting off doing something, fixing something, doing something on your car, whatever you need to do, fill in the blank. Whatever you need to do, stop waiting. Do it now. I can't remember where it came from, but it is a life changer. It helps you to focus on just doing it even when it's difficult. If you can count to 3, you can do this too, okay? If you know how to count all the way from 1 to 3, there's only one number between that. You count, you say 1, 2, 3, and when you get to 3, do it. Or if you want to be fancy, you can go 3, 2, 1, I don't care. If you don't want to get out of bed, 1, 2, 3, kick your legs up and get out of bed. If you don't want to work out, 1, 2, 3, go do it. If you're feeling tired but you don't feel like praying, 1, 2, 3, and then go pray. I don't know what you have been putting off, but go do it now.